So we're celebrating Black History Month, and today with me I have Joseph Malik. Joseph, you will remember him from the protest we had on the 7th of June, right here in Edinburgh, at this very same spot. We had the protest, and that is where I first met you, Joseph. What did that protest mean to you?
That protest changed my life that day. I watched Malcolm X all night and marched down here and then seen you. And it was the first time we had really met because we'd just spoken on the phone. And I looked and then there was hundreds and then there was thousands and then I tapped you on the shoulder and I says, "Look, Cynthia." And we looked and there was 7,000 people here. The day that changed all of our lives forever.
Did you know that there were so many black people in Scotland?
I did, but I think they were really brave enough now to stand up and say enough's enough and show their face. I always knew they were there, but I've never seen them until now.
Until now. So I think we should always remember that day for so many reasons, not because of the protest simply, but because of what it did for our community and how we all came together and mobilized into something that's really making a difference in society, don't you think?
You don't have to ask me twice, sister. I'll be here next year on June the 7th, and we should always use that. We should make that our day for Black Scotland and especially Edinburgh.
Yeah, I totally agree. And so, one of the reasons we are here right now is because you have got this single
Yes.
that we want to talk about today, Looking Right Back at You. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, on that day, I was sort of caught up by the emotion of everything that had happened, and people were recording on their cameras quite a lot. So I took all that footage and sat there at my desk and wrote the song, wrote the whole script for what I wanted. I phoned Camilla Wahid, she's based in New Jersey in America. She started writing her rap. And then obviously I contacted you, and then I have Nicole Smith, and with myself and these three powerful sisters, we recorded this single, which is now going to be the anthem for the Afro-Caribbean Society of Edinburgh.
That is wonderful. We are so privileged to have somebody as talented as you writing a song for the community. That's going to go down for generations, you know?
Yes.
Because we all took part in that. We were all here and we can all remember the day as being something that was important for us. We stood up, we took the risk, we came out. You know, I know there was a lockdown going on, but you know, we had to tell the world that we are facing something even more serious on a daily basis for many, many years. COVID is recent, but racism has been around for many years and it's affected us in so many ways. Yeah.
Well, can I make this clear? More people die of racism than they do of COVID. And we've been dealing with this for hundreds of years now. Enough's enough. We thought our generation in the past, so the 60s, had dealt with this. And then in the 70s, and then look at us now, having to stand up again and to keep this fight going. Because I want the next generation to be safe. I don't want them to live in fear. I'm not going to have that on my watch.
That's right. It's so important for us to speak up and to do something now so that the future generation doesn't have to go through anything that any of us
Yeah.
has gone through.
That's the dream. That is the dream. And we have to keep that going. And I find that it makes me so angry that we're having to still keep fighting. But I will keep doing it, and I'll put myself in harm's way to make sure that young black kids in Edinburgh are safe.
Do you know, I first met you at the protest, and what you shared really touched me, and I was so curious to know more about you and your experiences. Now, you talked about where you were born, and you talked about being beaten up by the police. Do you want to talk a bit about your early days?
Well, when I was 5 years old, I was painted white at Easter House in Glasgow. It took a long time to get that paint off. I was scrubbing it off. I was nearly beaten to death by 4 police officers in Shettleston in Glasgow when I was 14. And I ended up leaving Glasgow in 1990 because I'd had enough. And when I moved through here, I rolled my sleeves up and I seen that Edinburgh was a safer place to stay. But when the football casuals started attacking Asian shopkeepers and Africans, and they actually killed Ahmed Sheikh I said enough is enough.
I see, I see. We were talking about the importance of having us visible as a community, but also the importance of having uh, black men visible in society. How important, can you tell us a bit more about why you think it's important for black men to be visible, not just in the papers or in the news for the usual things, but for all the positive things that they're doing?
Well, black men have to be seen as more than drug dealers and the villains and criminals when we're actually sportsmen and musicians and role models and leaders. But with myself, I am not a footballer, I'm a musician, and I use my voice to let the community know that I care about them and that I'm willing to do stuff to help them. But also, people go to protests, like the protests we had. A lot of those people didn't return to the other protests. You have to keep going. It's more than just getting your badge and wearing the t-shirt. Volunteer at the refugee centre to cook. Volunteer to help the homeless. Volunteer to go and help people like Deborah Canby and make sure she's safe and other African families in this city.
Yeah, that's also the other thing. Like, if we're going to be fighting racism, we need our allies. And it's so important to have allies, like all the hundreds of allies who came here on the day. But the thing is, as well, with this struggle, it's more than just for the hype. This is a real struggle, and people have to be committed to fighting against racism in their workplaces, within their families, speaking up and challenging, calling out racism when they hear these microaggressions and things like that, and speaking up for people who are not in a position of power when it comes to things like this.
Well, that's why we have to reach out to each other. And on that day, when I opened my big mouth and I said, if you're in trouble, call me. I've had lots of calls and I will still keep answering those phone calls. But reach out to me then and reach out to Cynthia and other leaders within the black community and we're here for you. But if you stay silent, that's going to help racists. But if you speak up, I'll stand with you. Cynthia will stand with you. But you have to let us know that you have problems and we'll come out and help you.
This is Mark Tremaine from ACSS. We're here at Holyrood Park interviewing Joseph Malik just before the release of Diverse 3, the singer, songwriter, producer. What would you like to tell us about the album? What kind of sound? What for your audience? What should they expect?
I have looked what's happened this year in 2020 and documented it all, the way Marvin would or the way Curtis would. And so I talk about Epstein, I talk about COVID, I talk about Black Lives Matter, and I talk about the struggles of even just living day to day. Hence, I've written a song called I Quit by 95. It's about people being furlonged and having no wages and no money.
Okay, and
so how are they going to cope?
Gotcha. And the first single is?
The first single is called Looking Right Back at You.
Okay.
Part 1 and Part 2. Part 1 features myself and Malcolm Ross from Orange Juice on guitar, and also Nicole Smith, who was just signed to Ramrock. And on Part 2 is Sister Cynthia Gentle and Camilla Wahid from New Jersey, America.
Okay.
And Nicole Smith as well.
So you got a list of collaborators on the track.
There's a lot of womanhood on the track and on the album in general. I sat back last night and to make notes of just who's on this record, and there's a lot of sisters.
Okay.
All different races, all different ages, all telling their story.
So would this be like a homage to sisterhood?
It's a homage to humanity, but it dips its cat at Black Lives Matter and to sisterhood.
Okay. Which other highlight tracks can you enlighten us?
I can't say too much because my mind will get quite angry, but I would say Battle Cry is another big track which features Camilla Wahid, an MC from New Jersey, and Capital A from Los Angeles.
Okay.
And I didn't want UK rappers, I wanted Afro-American rappers.
Okay.
That was a big pivotal point for me because I wanted to make the journey and the link between what Edinburgh's doing and what's happening in cities across America who are getting way more tight than we are here. And I wanted to link up with them, and they're good friends of mine, and I've got a lot of American family.
Okay.
So I wanted to connect with them. Plus, we're better rappers, to be honest. Much better than anybody in Scotland.
I won't gauge my opinion on that. Okay. Now, with regards to the current climate in Scotland and relating it to America. Have you seen the change over here, like with hate crimes, abuse?
Yes, it's risen its ugly head again.
Okay.
So it's time for men and women to stand up and to say no more. But that doesn't just mean going to a protest. That means actually physically standing in front of punches. That means actually physically staying up and protecting someone for fear that she might get her windows broken.
Okay, so just to get an idea on your roots. Tell us about your roots. You are...
Well, I was born in Glasgow. My father is Nigerian. My mother is Irish-Scottish. I left Glasgow in 1990 to move to Edinburgh because I found Edinburgh was a lot more peaceful city.
Okay.
And when I moved through here, I'd seen some horrendous racism, not as bad as Glasgow, but really bad, with football hooligans bullying Asians and Africans.
Okay, so after around, 93, Stephen Lawrence around that time?
Yes.
Period, okay. Because I'd like to know about, say, your experience as a minority without a large black community. So say London had the Brixton riots,
Yeah.
so people were attacked in groups. How have you navigated yourself, maybe being the lone person? How have you had to handle that?
Well, we've
Has there
never
been a
had
community
riots.
to...
Yes,
to...
we've never had riots in Edinburgh mainly because of myself. I think of people like AJ and Scotty and his family. We can all handle ourselves. So we had our own Stephen Lawrence. We had Ahmed Sheikh, who was murdered by two football casuals at the Cavendish nightclub in Edinburgh in the early 90s. That was our Stephen Lawrence, and he never got any justice.
Okay. So say with the Sheikh Bayou,
Yeah.
the death of the unarmed man, have you been active with that, with Black Lives Matter?
I've been active in that when it started.
Okay.
His case is still ongoing, so we still talk about it. But when that happened, I was active already back then.
Okay.
Because I'm now 3 decades doing this.
Okay.
I'd stepped away for a while, and it was Cynthia that called me back into action again.
Okay.
Because there's a Martin Luther King, and then you need somebody to be the bad guy, the Malcolm X, to actually take that step a bit more further
So
than
we're
just
going on the lines of by any means necessary.
very much so. Very much so, because while I'm alive, I don't want to see anybody harmed for being the colour they are. I don't want them to grow up the same way I did and to face the same horrendous things that I had to face. So it's my job personally to make sure that young black kids are safe in this city.
Yeah. So as a father, has your children, have they seen a change with the atmosphere, the temperature?
To be honest,
Scotland?
I keep my kids out of this
Very good.
because I've been attacked physically and I've been quite a lot of horrible things sent to me online, and so I don't want them to know who my kids are, because by them knowing my kids, then they can get through to me and attack me. So I can't have that. I keep my kids protected out of sight.
Okay. So talking about the album, so you're with Ramrock.
Yes, Ramrock Records.
Okay. So your journey, what was the first label you were with?
I've been to many labels. I was on Mo Wax Records, which
James Lavelle?
started with James Lavelle,
Okay.
and I was also on the Stereo MCs label,
Okay.
Response, and on Compost Records with Jazzanova,
Rainer
Truby,
Okay.
all those family. And then I retired and then came out of retirement because I got this phone call from Joe Wallace and Ashley Beadle,
Okay.
and they signed me, and I've set up a mission to do 3 albums in 3 years, and we've done that. We've just finished the 3rd album.
So is Ashley Biddle, is he collaborating on the album?
He's doing a remix of the 2nd single,
Okay.
and he is like my big brother, my mentor,
Okay.
who I can call and get his opinion.
Great. And I hear you have another big fan, Craig Charles.
Yes, Uncle Craig, as I call him. He plays. He's made me the most played black artist in Scotland
Okay.
on his show. But also the main Edinburgh artist. The amount of radio play I get from Craig Charles is ridiculous.
That's fantastic.
But that's mainly due to his producer Simon Hodge. I should give credit to, who also runs a lot of funk and soul nights in the city, and they've always been really supportive of the scene and the music scene that we have here in Edinburgh.
Okay. What date's the record due out?
The single will be out at the end of November,
Okay.
and the album will be out early spring
Okay.
2021.
So all fans out there, album will be out at the end of October, early November.
The single,
the
first
single will be out, and then album will be out before Christmas?
Early spring.
Early spring next year, 2021. That's Mark Tremaine, ACSS, Black History Month.